right here. It says,
All right. All right, let's be on the record in case number 2019CR1232, caption State of Kansas versus Samantha Robinson. Would the parties announce their appearances?
May it please the court, the state of Kansas appears virtually through Assistant District Attorney Adam Sokoloff.
Your Honor, Ms. Robinson appears in person on video with counsel Vincent Rivera.
All right, we're here set down for a plea hearing today. Ms. Robinson, to take up your plea today, I'm going to have to ask you some questions. To do that, I need to swear you in. So if you'd raise your right hand, my court reporter will give you the oath.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Now, as I ask you these questions, Mrs. Robinson, if at any time you don't understand what I'm asking, or you have questions about one of your rights or something like that, tell me that, and you and I will talk about it until we're sure we're on the same page, okay?
Okay.
All right, and at any time you want to talk to Mr. Rivera in private before you answer a question, just like we did before the start of this hearing, you just tell me, and I'll send you guys to a separate room so you can do that, all right?
Okay.
And I guess as we're talking about this with this video conference by Zoom, you understand that if you wanted to appear in person, you would have that right. We would continue this, set this up, and bring everybody to the courtroom. But my understanding in talking to Mr. Rivera is that you and he had talked about this, and you're okay waiving your personal appearance and appearing by Zoom today. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Robinson, how far did you go in school?
12th grade. Graduated.
Graduated high school. All right. You read and write okay?
Yeah.
All right. As you sit here today, are you under the influence of any alcohol or drugs or prescription medicine that might cloud your mind, keep you from understanding what's going on?
No.
Feel like you understand what we're doing today?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you know what you're charged with?
Aggravated child endangerment.
Okay. The original charges are manufacture of methamphetamine, child endangerment, and interference with a law enforcement officer. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And you understand you don't have to change your plea from not guilty to guilty. If you wanted a trial by jury on these charges, you would have that absolute right. You understand that?
Yes.
At that trial, Mr. Rivera would be able to help you. He would cross-examine and confront all of the state's witnesses and testimony. He could call any witnesses you wanted called, and if they didn't want to come to court, he could use the subpoena power of the court to make them come to court. Do you understand that?
Yes.
At that trial, you would have a right to testify, but you would also have a right not to testify, which means if you decided not to testify, the state couldn't use that against you. In other words, Mr. Sokoloff couldn't get up and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, Samantha must be guilty because she didn't tell you her side of the story. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Now, if we had that trial, and at the end of that trial, you were convicted, you would have a right to appeal that conviction to the appellate courts. If you didn't have the money to do that, a lawyer would be appointed to do it for you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now, if we go forward to this plea, you're going to be giving up all of those rights that I just talked about. There's not going to be a trial of any kind in this case. You understand that?
Yes.
The parties told me before we came on the record here today that the agreement is that you're going to plead to count 2, the aggravated endangering a child, which is a severity level 9 person felony. And in exchange for that, the state is going to dismiss the other 2 charges. Furthermore, the parties are going to suggest to the court and recommend to the court that I give you a sentence that reflects the time that you've already served in jail and release you straight into post-release supervision. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Is that your understanding of the entire plea agreement?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Sokoloff?
Your Honor, this is, I believe, not critical or material to anything, but there was an amended information that was filed wherein count 1 is the aggravated endangerment. I just want to make sure we don't cross our wires here. We're all agreeing that the nature of the charge, but I think you might be reading off of the original filed information where she was charged with distribution along with Mr. Benton, where at prelim.
All right. So the amended charge is only, aggravated endangering a child's count 1 in the amended charges, and the other counts are being dismissed. Is that your understanding, Ms. Robinson?
Can I talk to Vinny real quick? Or Vincent, sorry.
Here, actually, hold on. Can I try and what they're saying is, do you remember when they dropped? Originally, you were charged with the distribution, or excuse me, the manufacturing. You remember?
Yes.
That? And then when you got out of jail, he had actually dropped that, and you were just charged with the aggravated endangerment and the interference with the law enforcement.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what we just talked about.
Oh, okay.
Do you still want to talk to me though?
No, I'm good now.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So that I just have the docket sheet here in front of me, and basically what the lawyers are saying, and I want to make sure this is your understanding as well. Even before today's hearing, the state had already dismissed that manufacturer of a controlled substance charge, and your only standing charge right now with the aggravating endangering a child and interference with a law enforcement officer. As part of this plea, you're going to plead to that count 1, aggravated endangering a child, and the state's going to dismiss the interference with a law enforcement officer. That's my understanding, Ms. Robinson. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
All right. And I'll just, to make sure, Mr. Sokoloff, I have that right.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure we weren't using count 2 and we should have been saying count 1. That was all.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes, Your Honor. I agree.
All right. Fantastic. So has anybody else promised you anything other than what I just went over to get you to plead today, Ms. Robinson?
No.
All right. Has anybody placed any force or threats against you to make you plead today?
No.
All right. So the parties are agreeing to recommend to me a sentence that basically reflects time served, where you don't do any more time, but that you're released into post-release supervision. You understand that any agreement on a sentencing is only a recommendation to the court, that I'm not bound by, and I have the ability to sentence you to anything that the law allows. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. So given that, I have to assume you have the very worst possible criminal history to advise you what the maximum that anybody could possibly get for this charge is, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the maximum anyone could get would be 17 months in prison and a fine of $100,000 with a post-release supervision duration of 12 months. Do you understand that's the maximum?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Robinson, do you have any questions about anything that we went over for either Mr. Rivera or myself?
No.
And are you wanting to change your plea on that count 1, aggravated endangering a child, from not guilty to guilty?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Rivera, do you know any legal reason why your client should not plead?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Given that, Ms. Robinson, as to count 1 of the amended information charging aggravated endangering a child by exposing to manufacture or sale of meth, which is a severity level 9 person felony, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
As to count 1 of the amended information, which is aggravated endangering a child exposing to the manufacture or sale of meth, a severity level 9 person felony, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay. So you don't want to plead guilty to this?
Hold on, let me talk to Vinny. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. I'm going to send you back to the breakout room.
Hey, Your Honor, just a little context
Well,
for
we
you.
are, just so you all know, it's not a surprise, we are
still-
live stream on YouTube. I don't have a way to pause that.
I understand. This was an issue that Mr. Rivera had warned me could be a potential hiccup here. Her general wanting to go over details and sometimes needing it repeated a few times. So I think this is not a problem. It's just she sometimes is unsure, and Vinny says he needs to communicate thoroughly. That's all.
Sure, sure.
All right, Judge, we're ready.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ms. Robinson, we went through all of your rights and what you're giving up by entering a plea and what a plea could expose you to and all of that. So you had a chance to talk with Mr. Rivera in private. Given that, do you have any questions for me about anything that we've gone over?
No.
Okay. All right. So is it still your intention at this time? I will ask you for your plea here in a moment, but is it your intention to go forward with this plea today and end up pleading guilty to that count one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Given that, I will ask you once again, as to count one of the amended information, charging you with aggravated endangering a child by exposing to the manufacture or sale of meth, which is a severity level 9 person felony. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
All right, now I'm going to ask Mr. Sokoloff to tell me what he thinks the evidence would be at trial by the state. I want you to listen closely because when he's done, I'm going to ask you if that's what happened, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Sokoloff.
Your Honor, were this case to proceed to the trial court, the state would present evidence that we believe would prove that on January 26, 2019, at the location of 4045 Fisher Street in Kansas City, Kansas, here in the great county of Wyandotte, that Miss Robinson did leave her minor child, infant child at the time, at that apartment in the presence of Mr. Jamal Benton, who was engaged in the manufacturing for purposes of distribution, the substance methamphetamine. This all happened again in January of 2019 in Wyandotte County. And allowing that infant to be in the presence of the manufacturer of methamphetamine is enough to satisfy the elements of the count to which she pleads guilty here today.
All right. Ms. Robinson, is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I will find that the defendant has freely, voluntarily, and intelligently waived her constitutional rights and entered her plea today. She understands what she's charged with and the consequences of this plea. There is a factual basis for a finding of guilt, and I will in fact find that Ms. Robinson is guilty of aggravated endangering a child, a severity level 9 person felony. The other counts per plea agreement will be dismissed. I'm going to order a pre-sentence investigation, continue sentencing pending this plea. Pending that pre-sentence investigation. I'm looking today, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to do this by Zoom again for September 4th at 11 a.m. Ms. Robinson, as a convicted felon, it's prohibited for you to own or possess a firearm, certain kind of deadly cutting instruments like dirks, daggers, switchblades, things like that. Mr. Rivera can tell you more about that. Basically, before you arm yourself with a weapon, make sure that it wouldn't be reason to revoke your post-release or add new charges, okay?
Okay.
Is this a registrable offense?
No, Your Honor, I don't believe it is.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Mr. Rivera, how's that date work for you?
Fine.
And Mr. Sokoloff?
Yes, Your Honor, works fine.
Ms. Robinson, I sent this invite to the email address you're using today. Should I send the next one to the same one? Will you be there in September?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And you're okay doing your sentencing by Zoom?
Yes, sir.
All right. I am going to send you and Mr. Rivera a copy of what's called a PSI request. He's going to fill that out with you. It's basically the information so the person doing your pre-sentence investigation can contact you and do an interview. If you'll fill that out with him And Mr. Rivera, can you get it over to court services when you're done?
Yes, sir. And I assume the email or whatever is going to be on the form where I need to send it.
Yeah, I'll send that in the body of the email, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so other things for our record today. Mr. Sokoloff.
At some point, I think Mr. Rivera will have to get Ms. Robinson to autograph a plea petition, no?
Yes, yes. Vinny, can you get one of those, get it over to her and get it back here?
We've got her address. So Samantha, I'll be sending you something in the mail with a letter and we can talk if you got questions.
A written plea
Okay.
petition, a written plea petition signed and executed by the parties is required. Now, I've talked to the other judges here in the county and they are requiring one in every felony plea. So if you can get that done up and get it, I'd appreciate it. Okay. Anything else for our record today?
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good luck, Ms. Robinson. We'll see you in September. We are adjourned.
All right. Thank you, Judge.